This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons for mothers all over the world. This is Thank You Mama, and my name is Anna Tyler. My guest today is Jaynie Jackson. Hi, Jaynie, welcome.
Hello, my dear. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Jaynie. Jaynie is a talent manager, a vocal coach, and a consultant for TV from Los Angeles. Jaynie has 2 biological daughters and 2 adopted daughters and 6 grandchildren. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And you grew up in Illinois into a family of performers and artists. Will you tell me a little bit about them?
Yes. My grandfather was a musician, and I never knew my grandfather. He was already deceased when I was born, but he was a musician. My father and all of his brothers and sisters were singers and musicians. They all played instruments and they all sang. As young as, I would say 7 was the youngest when they started traveling all over Illinois and a few other states, surrounding states, to perform professionally as children.
You had a crazy story about your grandfather and grandmother's stage outfits.
Actually, my father and his brothers and sisters, yes, because there's 4 generations. Actually, that would be 5, maybe? Yes. My grandfather, my father, myself, and my daughters and my grandchildren all sing and play instruments.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Every generation. But my father, when they were young, my father, my brother, and his 2 sisters, there were 4 of them in his group, and they were called the Warden Quartet. And my grandmother had, 9, 10 children. So she couldn't afford to spend money on their singing careers. So there's a husband and wife that owned a lot of the businesses in the town, a small town of Kewanee, Illinois. And they also owned a funeral parlor where they took it upon themselves to manage my father and his brothers and sisters. And so they went out and bought them shoes, but they made their suits and their girls' dresses out of the cloth that they lined the caskets with. And it was beautiful silk cloth, very, very expensive. But that's what they made the boys' suits and the 2 girls' dresses out of. And then they went out and bought them brand new shoes and little bows and things to put in their hair. And they traveled all over Illinois and the surrounding states, Wisconsin, different states, singing and performing. And the boys would even do boxing. And I have the original tickets and the advertisement that they had back in the day. It was $1.50 for the whole season to see them perform.
Those were different times. Way different times. Apropos different times, Jaynie, when we started talking about this interview and my project, you told me how you come from a family with a strong faith. And you actually told me that the Bible teaches us to learn or pass learning through generations, which I find absolutely amazing. I'm quite upset that today we are so obsessed with this youth and youth culture, because I think older people have so much to give us and we should not ignore them. And this is part of the reason why I'm started this podcast. Can you tell me more about that?
Absolutely. My family and my mom, my grandmother, they always taught us to pray first. Before everything, pray first. They taught us the power of prayer and how important it is. And we've passed that down from generation to generation, as that is in the first 5 books of the Bible. And it's one of the commandments. And it says to teach your children to pass it down and to never, ever, ever stop telling the stories, to never stop. And you have to instill this in every generation, and you have to keep it going. That's one of the commandments. And so I found that with my children and my grandchildren, that if you teach this way of life, it doesn't matter what happens around you. It doesn't matter how times change. That's one thing that never changes. If you have the faith And if you have that spirituality embedded in you, it doesn't matter. The world can do whatever it wants around you, but you'll always be steadfast and stable, and you'll always keep those morals and those values instilled. And that's been passed down into my family from generation to generation. And we're a giving family. My mom always taught us to give. And one of the things she taught us when we were very, very young is if you open your hand to give, it's also open to receive. I teach that to my children and my grandchildren.
Jaynie, this is one of my favorite lessons from your mom, and I already passed it on to my son. Oh. I'm already teaching him that. I told him the story. But now we jumped into the lessons. Can you please tell me a little bit about your mama first?
Oh, my mom, my hero. I tell you, I always thought when I was growing up that the values and the morals and the lessons and the learning, I always thought those were so hardcore when I was growing up. But as I, got older and began to have children of my own, I thought, wow, I'm so happy that she was my mom. Even though I thought it was strict at the time, I learned that if I hadn't had those values instilled in me, I wouldn't be who I am today. My daughters wouldn't be who they are, and they wouldn't be teaching my grandchildren these things. But I always thought, oh, that's so silly. That doesn't make sense. Oh, Mom, you're just old. That's an old person thing. But you know what? I find myself repeating everything that I thought was so silly and sounded so, oh, that's just old folks stuff. But I'm one of those old folks now.
But this is something that repeats in many of my interviews, is how we learn how to appreciate our parents, and in this specific case, our mothers, through age.
Yes.
It seems to be a rule that when we are young, we just want to boycott it and be against it. But then as we grow older, we learn how to appreciate what our moms taught us. But so your mom, her name is Florence Christine Walden?
Yes, Warden.
Warden, sorry. And you told me she was born on the Christmas day.
She was born on Christmas Day, and she's such an angel. What a representative. So she is such a giving person. And I think that God gave her to this world on Christmas Day for a reason, because I tell you, she was the most giving person ever that I've ever known for the whole community. She was everybody's mom. She was the whole community's mom. And people would see her. And to this day, they still refer to her as Mother Florence. Mother Florence. She was Mother Florence. And I tell you, it was such a blessing. We shared her with the whole town and everybody else.
And she had 9 children. She raised 9 children, which is amazing. And she lived to be 90.
Yes, she did. And I tell you, while she was raising us, even though there was a house full of us, you would have thought that you were the only child. We each got the attention that we needed, the love that we needed. There was never any competition or, feeling like you've been left out. It didn't matter. And I'm like smack dab in the middle. Mm-hmm. I'm the middle child. And I tell you, we all got everything that we need. And with 9 children, and you have children going everywhere to and fro. I loved track and field and entertainment. There was always someone doing a show, or there's someone at a track meet. But I don't even know how they did it. My mom got every one of us. My brothers were they were on the wrestling teams. I mean, we were a very, very active family, because my mom always taught us to use every gift that we have, to never bury your gift, because if you bury your gift, then it gets old, you can't use it anymore, and it doesn't do anything to serve the world. So you have to use all your gifts. And so, she would have one at wrestling practice, one at track practice, one in the auditorium practicing for the school play, one at the drummers, and we were just all over the place. And, my older sister was an artist. She loved to paint. She has some of her paintings still hanging in the art galleries in Illinois and Chicago. So we were just all over the place, and she managed to do it. And I teach my girls the same thing. I'm telling you, you have one kid. I'm like, what are you doing complaining? You should be able to be 20 places at one time. Here, let me show you how to do this, and they have more things, you have Uber, you have nannies, you have all that to help you. And we didn't have any of that. And my mom didn't have any of that. And she raised 7 girls and 2 boys that are upstanding, outstanding people that love people and love to serve. And it just behooves me on how today, these young people that have 1 or 2 kids, they're just acting like, oh, they just can't get through the day. I'm like, are you serious here?
Sometimes the less busy you are, the more complicated it is. But Jaynie, I want to go back to the gift, because you told me how both she and your father taught you to live your passion and to recognize your gifts and live them and turn them into your profession, which you also supported with your daughters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always heard from my mom that God gave you a gift for a reason. Everybody has one. Some people may not have discovered what they are yet, but everybody is here for a purpose, and everyone has a gift. And you should use your gift to make your living. That's what God gave it to you for, not only to bless others, but if you use your true gift, if you're not doing anything to impact somebody else's life, then that's not your true gift. And if you recognize your true gift and you use it the way that it was intended for you to use, it will pay. Your gift will make room for you, is what the Bible says. And that means you shouldn't be doing anything other than using your gift to live your life and to make a living. And that's the way my mom taught us, and that's what she got. She's very, very spiritual, and I tell you, she made the Bible make so much sense for us without being complicated,
When you were speaking of Bible, I wanted to talk more about praying with you, because you were telling me how strong prayer was with her and with you, and how your grandchildren are now learning the power of prayer from you. How do you do it? Can you teach us? Can you teach me?
Well, I tell you what, when you pray, and it's so simple, and people think they have to have this long, drawn-out ceremony, but it's just talking to God, and He wants to hear from you, and that's the most important thing. He wants to hear from you. He wants to have relationship with you. The relationship that I have with my mom. If I didn't talk to her, she would probably think I didn't love her. So that's why you talk to people that you want to have a relationship with. And I teach my children and my grandchildren that, and it's so, so powerful. And one way that I learned of the power of prayer is when my mom was dying of cancer, and they called me here in Los Angeles. And my sister said, come, you must come now. She will not live to see tomorrow. She's in the 4th stage of cancer. And instead of panicking and grabbing my suitcase and telling my husband, hey, I got to get on a flight, my mother's dying, I got on my face beside my bed, not on my knees, because this had to be some heavy duty prayer. I got on my face beside my bed. I can see it as clear as day now. And I began to pray to God, and I began to petition Him for my mother's life. And I knew He was not finished with her. And I didn't care what the doctor said. And I didn't care how many people were panicking all over the place. I prayed first, and then I told my husband, as tears rolled down my face, I have to get on a plane. They say my mother is dying and she may not live to see tomorrow, so I need to go right now. And I got on a plane and I went, but I knew in my heart that God had heard my prayer. When I got to that hospital room, I remember it being so dark because it was nighttime and there were no visitors because it was past visiting time. And my father was sitting in a corner in a chair in her room and he had fallen asleep. I went to her bed. And she had this all tubes up her, her nostril, everything. It was awful. And she looked like she was already gone. But I grabbed her hand and I began to pray again and thank God for her life. And I felt just this heat. It was so much heat. I was rubbing her arm with one hand and holding her hand with my other hand. And as I, was soothing her, and she was out, and I was soothing her, and I felt this heat just come down her arm. And it came all the way down into her hand, into my hand, and up my arm to the hand I was holding hers with. And then it went down one side of me. I remember I had on tennis shoes and sweatpants because that's how I ride on the plane. And it went down all the way down to my shoes. And it was like the rubber on my tennis shoes. My gym shoes were so hot. And it just went right out my foot. And that was it. And the next morning when they came to take her to surgery, they told us, we don't know if she'll even make it through the surgery because the cancer has spread all over. And when we open her up, it'll spread even more and even faster. And I knew it had to take a miracle, but that's what prayer is. And it did.
What happened?
After so many hours, and by this time, all the neighbors, everyone in town loves her. So the waiting room is so full that they had to give us a private area of the hospital. There were so many people, the whole town had come to wait for her to come out of surgery. They said it would take probably about 6 or 7 hours because it was so bad. I guess it was about maybe 2 hours or 3 hours at the most. They had 3 doctors, 3 surgeons working on her. 2 of them came in the room that was full of people, cousins, neighbors, everyone. And they pulled down their mask from over their face. Right away, everyone thought, oh my God, they haven't been in there that long. She's gone already. It didn't work. They pulled down their masks and just shook their head and said, there's nothing there. There's no cancer. There's nothing. The only thing was she had something about, what they say, I can't remember the diagnosis. It's something like really simple, like in her, something in her intestine or something that didn't have anything to do with the cancer. And they fixed that and she was fine. But they had pictures of the cancer.
This is incredible. How long did she still live after this?
Oh, she lived until just year before last. And this was, oh my gosh, 20 years ago, maybe.
She lived up 20 years after that.
She lived at least 20 years after that, because I'm going by Timmy's age and she's the baby. And I remember how old she was when it happened. So she's lived about 22 years after that.
This makes me feel bad that I maybe gave up on my mom, but every story is different and every experience is different.
Well, I tell you, from here on, I'm telling you the power of prayer. I can give you another story, but I know you don't have time, where it is now literally, and these things are documented. These things are documented, medically documented. And the second story is also with my mom. Maybe some other time we can talk about that one. But yes.
So you were going to church. The whole family went to church. And this is what you also learned from them and what you're teaching your children. We talked about church and how important this feeling of community is. And you grew up in a home, you said the home was always open to people who needed help. And this is amazing to me because she had 9 children and the home was still open for others.
Absolutely. We've had families come to town that wanted to move to our city and didn't have a place to stay. And they stayed with us back there in Illinois. The houses, we have basement, the main level, and then upstairs. And so there was always plenty of room for everyone. I mean, we would think, okay, with 9 kids and then the 2 adults, there wouldn't be. But we always made room. And as children, we were always happy to have another family in our home. It was just so much joy, and we made new friends. And these could be, sometimes there were relatives that moved to our town from out of town, and sometimes they weren't. They were just friends of friends. And we always had a big home because we had lots of siblings and big family. And my mom and dad would always open it up to anyone. I mean, it sort of reminded me of back in the cowboy days when there were travelers and they come up to you, tie their horses up and come in and ask water and whatever until they get to the next town. But that's exactly how our home was. It was open to help. My mother was such a help. She was such a helper, just a helper. Her thing was serving. And everyone came to her for everything, just to sit and talk. And my dad was a talker, and he would tell us the old stories, and my mom would be sitting there, and she would make sure everybody was comfortable and had water or juice or whatever they needed. She was such a server. And I just know that, because human beings, they can't call the time, because when you are in this world and you are using your gift, and that was my mother's gift. My mother couldn't sing a lick. We got the music from my father. As a matter of fact, when my mom she always used to try to sing church hymns, and oh my goodness, we would cover our ears. But her gift was serving. Everyone loved her. Everyone came to her for everything, for advice, for prayer, for healing, for shelter. That was her gift, and that's what she loved to do. And that's why God had to keep her here, no matter what the doctor said, because she was using her gifts to his glory and to the service of the community and the service of the world.
But Jaynie, I'm so glad you went back to talking about the gift, because we talked about the gift and how important it is to recognize your gift and use it and live it and turn it into a profession. I know too many people who are struggling with recognizing what their gifts are. And I'm very glad that you're talking about this, about recognizing that for somebody, I'm saying just, it's not just, but being there for other people and helping and supporting and serving other people, as you say, that is an amazing gift. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be the best painter in the world, or I don't know what, filmmaker, musician.
Well, you know what? That's so true, because I recognize just lately, because I do have a talent as a singer, I also am an actor myself. There's a lot of things that I do, but I realized just the other day that one of the biggest gifts that God gave me, and I love it when I do it, I tell you, I couldn't be on any stage and get this feeling that I get. And I'm very in tune and focused with my spiritual side. I hear the voice of God. I hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. And when I heard, literally like I'm talking to you, heard the Holy Spirit say the other day, "You're an encourager." I am an encourager. That's a gift I have. And all of my life, people, young, old, kids, all my daughter's friends, everyone, people, that don't even know me will walk up to me in a grocery store, a public place, anywhere, and start talking to me. And the next thing you know, they're whatever problems they have, I'm giving them advice, I'm comforting them, I'm praying with them. I mean, right out in public. And, I go hiking, I go up Runyon Canyon, and I'm sitting at the top, and someone will sit beside me, and then something will come in my spirit, and they'll say something and I'll say something. And next thing you know, they're crying on my shoulder at the top of Runyon Canyon, and I'm, helping them through whatever it is. And the other day, it spoke to me and said, "That's your gift. You're an encourager." So you can have more than one gift. And we think that, I'm going to be a famous actor, famous singer. Yeah, those are gifts. And those are things that you share with the world. But when you can use your gift to make a difference in someone's life, boy, I tell you, I felt better when I recognized that gift. And they said it just like that. You're an encourager. Spirit spoke to me and said, "You're an encourager. That's your gift." And I look back on my life, and I've encouraged people all my life, even as a little girl. I remember all my friends. I would encourage them when we were playing games, or when they would fall down or hurt themselves, or if they thought they couldn't keep up, when we were running or playing. I'm just an encourager. And I am like, wow, that's so cool. I love it. I love it.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you inherited this from your mama, from Mama Florence.
Yes. That's the best part. That's the best part. I know it, because she was the same way. I can sing a song, and I do perform at different places, and people come up to you afterwards and say, "Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. You have the most beautiful voice." Da, da, da. And then they go home, and then, the next day they go on with their business. But when you have when you've given somebody a word that specifically affects their life and what's going on with them and helps them through whatever they're going through, they remember that. That stays with them. That's part of their healing. And to be able to play a part in someone's healing and someone getting to the next step and someone going higher, it's just, there's nothing like that. And that's what my mom did. She always told us, you are the best. You can always achieve what you want. There's nobody that can hold you down. Man has no rulings over you. You live and you're created by God, and He's the only one that can control your destiny. And you have a right to be successful, but always be thankful. Always give thanks. Always give thanks. And your potential is infinite, but be a giver and it will come back.
That's beautiful. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful note to end our conversation with. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is, it was a wonderful, wonderful chat with you. And I just want to leave you with this. Just remember this sentence. Your gift will make room for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, apropos your encourager. You were one of the first guests who said, yes, I want to be on your podcast. And you encouraged me to continue doing this. And thank you very, very much for being my guest and sharing Mama Florence with me.
Thank you for having me. Oh, thank you for having me. I love talking about her, thinking about her, and she is with me always. Thank you for letting me share her with you and whoever else may hear this.
My guest today was Jaynie Jackson from Los Angeles. From Jaynie's Mama Florence, we learned about the power of prayer, about family values, about the art of sharing, the joy of loving and serving people, about living your passion and living in gratitude. If you have a mama you'd like to share, you could get in touch with me at info@thankyouMama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider. That's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.